Good morning. It's a Monday, September 29th, 2014. This is Tech Talk Today, episode 65. And the Pacific Northwest has conspired against me, ladies and gentlemen. It's trying to give me SAD, seasonal affective disorder. Don't laugh. It's a thing, and I'm combating it with my Hughes lights right now. According to my brain, I hope, it thinks I'm like standing on a beach right now in a nice sunny atmosphere where we're doing Tech Talk Today. But I feel the pressure from the Pacific Northwest to change up the Tech Talk Today background. I want to brace you for that because I know it might disrupt your morning routine. But don't worry, to make you feel a little bit better, to ease into it, as it were, I'm actually surrounded by a donut of mumble intelligence. Time-appropriate greetings, Mumble Room.
Hello.
It's foggy here, and I think I just heard a foghorn.
There you go. Well, guys, I'm glad you're here today because our first story is a thick one, and I want you to help me dig through this because my mind is racing on all of the bad ramifications, but maybe there's some good to this. But I guess it was 2 weeks ago, we talked about how Apple and then also Google will be enabling encryption by default. And not that the encryption hasn't been there before, but one of the big changes will be they will no longer possess the keys to decrypt backups and things like that. Obviously, in the wake of the celebrity photo leaks and how privacy has become sort of a selling feature post-Snowden, this is a big deal, and a lot of consumers were happy to see this. Not everyone, though, was so happy. In fact, the new boss of the FBI is concerned by smartphone encryption. I'll play this little clip to set it up for us.
All right, now speaking of the FBI and James Comey, looks like the intelligence official is a little worried about his access to your phone. The agency director said on Thursday that he was, quote, very concerned about the new steps that tech giants like Apple and Google were taking to strengthen privacy protection on cell phones. Last week, Apple announced that it would no longer be possible to technically unlock encrypted iPhones and iPads because user passcodes could no longer be bypassed, meaning that law enforcement officials wouldn't be able to tap into your mobile devices anymore. Comey, however, wasn't too pleased. He said, quote, I'm a huge believer in the rule of law, but I'm also a believer that no one in this country is beyond the law. What concerns me about this is companies marketing something expressly to allow people to place themselves above the law. He went on to say, quote, the notion that someone would market a closet that could never be opened, even if it involves a case involving a child kidnapper and a court order, to me, it does not make any sense.
Of course, you got to think of the children here. He says, I'd hate to have people look at me and say, well, how come you can't save this kid? How come you can't do this thing? Mr. Comey said in a briefing. Comey. His comments came, of course, in reaction to Apple's announcement that they're turning on encryption in iOS 8 starting in version 8, and Google will starting in L without the keys. Mumble Room, what do you guys think about this so far? Of course, it's not too surprising that the FBI, who's in charge of sort of breaking cases like this, would be very concerned about more consumer-accessible encryption. But, Lionhead, I know in the pre-show you had some concerns, so I wanted to start with you. What are your thoughts on this? And, of course, you've got a perspective from outside the U.S. as well.
Well, let's take a low-tech solution. It's like if a policeman walks up to my door and demands to see my house without a warrant, that's the thing that people will agree that isn't allowed. Why? What is the difference between breaking an encryption without my knowledge or consent or a warrant?
I think their argument would be in that case they would go to the door lock manufacturer and say, give us the master key. Is that a possibility? I mean, it seems like that's something they could do now within that analogy. And this is essentially so. And I think we need to keep in mind here that we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the encryption that Apple and Google are doing, while good and commendable, is insufficient. And many studies have now suggested by analyzing L and iOS that there is still plenty of data available for law enforcement to get access to. There's still ways to crack it. And a lot of third-party apps are completely unencrypted. So if you have private data in a third-party app like, I don't know, Evernote, then it could be unprotected still, regardless of the encryption, possibly. So we need to keep in mind what Apple and Google have actually done is close the door for the FBI. They've closed the door. They haven't made it absolutely impossible. And the FBI's argument is that it is their job, it is their duty to crack encryption. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I don't agree, and because this whole thing, the whole reason that this strong encryption even came about is because of the Edward Snowden leaks and public dissatisfaction with the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm, right.
So it's understandable that Google and Apple would lock down their phones, and the FBI should just be like, well, the NSA screwed it up for all of us. Maybe we should talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, Comey in an interview said that he's very concerned about this, and he says for you guys that say the government doesn't need to crack encryption, well, he has this to say.
Or other places when someone says, isn't it terrible the government wants to break encryption on the internet? No, it's not. No, it's not. With lawful authority, overseen by the third branch of government, I need to be able to do that.
I need it.
If I show probable cause and go to a federal judge and get a warrant, I will save children that way.
Okay.
I will fight organized crime that way. I will fight terrorism that way in a way that makes sense. It took me 60 seconds just to say that.
So he says he needs this. He just said it. I need this. I need it to save the children. And there is probably some legitimacy to that, but I think we could all agree that it seems like what the process should be is not just bypassing the encryption altogether, but some sort of lawful way for them to have you decrypt it, or you can take the Fifth, and just like that's why we have the Fifth Amendment, right? I mean, am I just so into personal privacy and all of that I cannot see this clearly? Because to me this seems pretty clear cut and dry.
Well, the biggest problem is that they're trying to get the encryption keys. However, the biggest problem is that there are no encryption keys, and they. Okay, I had a thought here, and it just left my brain.
What do you think about the fact that he says what concerns me is that companies are marketing something expressly to allow people to place themselves beyond the law? Is that what Apple and Google are doing?
No, not at all. The
they just
thing
don't
is,
want to be sued for the nudes.
yeah.
Yeah, but
That's true.
They're not placing themselves above the law. They are just protecting what is theirs, their personal data that is within the law. What the FBI is trying to do is surpass the law by getting into places they have no legitimate right to.
Right, it's backwards, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's been flipped around. It's exactly right. Interesting. We'll watch it. Of course, it's not just the FBI. Local law enforcement, sheriffs and groups and like representatives of local law enforcement groups have been making very bold public statements that they're very unhappy about this new encryption scheme. They think it's a bad way to go. So we'll see. It's a surprising amount of pushback. There's not a lot of it being covered in the mainstream news, but there is. Just looking into the story today, I found lots of letters from different law enforcement representative agencies that they're writing to Apple and Google, and I would not be surprised if this doesn't go up the chain further eventually.
I think part of the problem is this is what happens when you have public utilities. If you have information on private servers, the American government doesn't really have a right to it.
The thought that I was going with is that the Fourth Amendment covers against this, and the problem is the NSA and the FBI have continually broken that Fourth Amendment, so it's understandable that Google and Apple would lock them down from being able to do it. They broke our trust.
Well, and it's not just about the U.S. citizens, too. They want to be able to provide a certain level of I don't know, not assurance, but they want to at least make appearances to foreign customers that are outside the U.S. that they're willing to go to the mat and fight for this stuff, and that they're willing to take steps against overreaches of the U.S. government to protect customers that are also outside the U.S. because they're a huge revenue source for them too. And so it's not just for us U.S. citizens, it's also as sort of trying to make good for the people outside that have been watching all of these Snowden revelations and realizing how compromised their data is anytime they use any American services outside the U.S.
Like, for instance, the Microsoft with Ireland issue lately.
Yeah. So it's just we see a couple of these things going on at once, and in the meantime, there's still fierce competition going on. This is a story that actually hit last week. I didn't run with it initially, but over the weekend, it got a lot of traction. It got a whole new life all over again. So I decided we'd talk about it here on the show since it is Monday, and sometimes I like to cover some of the stuff that went big over the weekend. Google chairman Eric Schmidt, he was on Bloomberg pimping a new book where he talks about how amazing Google is and how Google's culture is incredible. And I do have the entire 15-minute interview linked in the show notes. And if you're a Google watcher, it's fascinating to watch Eric Schmidt talk about how they've tricked all of the Google employees into believing the Google mission and how they all believe it. And so they work harder than your average company. And so if you want people to work harder than they normally do, you should trick your employees too. I have the 15-minute interview in the show notes. It's amazing. They talk about how they get them to drink the Google Kool-Aid, and then they get them to do all kinds of great things in the name of changing the world, which then they turn around and make advertising money off of. They use big, good business speak, so they don't just say it quite as clearly and plainly as that, but if you watch the 15-minute interview, it's dramatically clear. Also in the interview, and this is the point I thought maybe we could discuss today, Eric Schmidt, the former SVP of products, joined him, Jonathan Rosenberg, who co-wrote this book that Eric Schmidt's been pimping the hell out of for the last week. And it's interesting, too, that they're doing this during the iPhone time. So the duo, they always have interviews together. Schmidt doesn't really go on his own very often. The duo were sitting down at Bloomberg to promote the new book, and they were talking about the competition between Apple and Google. And according to Schmidt, he said the competition is crazier than it's ever been. There's nothing like it. So I grabbed just that portion of the 15-minute interview just so we could see what he had to say, and then we'll talk about it.
Does it worry you at all that the companies that have adopted Android can't make as much money in the smartphone business as Apple does? It's a great business model for Google. You've populated the world with Android software through these mobile devices, whether they be tablets, phablets, or smartphones. Yet increasingly, the likes of Samsung and others aren't delivering the same kind of results.
If you look at Digicel as an example, this is a company which has pioneered a low-cost model with an awful lot of customers. They've changed the world. They've been a good partner.
Now, if you listen to what he is answering, I left this question here because I thought it was a great question. If you listen to what Eric Schmidt's actually about to say, he's going to say, well, the way to make money off Android is if you can sell tens of hundreds of millions of devices. That's how you can make money. So what he's about to say is you could go like Apple and only sell a few devices and make all the profits, or you could ship Android and have to sell tens and hundreds of millions of devices to make about the same amount of money, but he actually says, but less profit.
Awful lot of customers. They've changed the world. They've been a good partner. The fact of the matter is you can make a small market share with a lot of profits, or you can make the same amount of money with a much larger market share and lesser profits. We go for volume in our strategies.
Of course you do.
And it's a model that's creating far more choice for consumers.
Now, the second guy is the guy that always goes along. That's Joe. And he kind of fills in the gaps where after Eric touches on the talking points.
And more importantly, it's driving the cost of smartphones down for consumers.
In fact, I would say that this brutal competition between Apple and Google over Android and iOS has enormous benefits for consumers worldwide. If you look at the innovation on the Apple side and on the Google side, that competition, which I think is the defining fight of the computer industry today, it benefits global.
He says it's the defining battle of the computer industry today, Google and Apple.
Billions of people level.
Is it as brutal as it ever was?
It's more so. Because
Why? So
How?
even though you've resolved some of your patent disputes?
Well, brutal in the sense that the margins are very tough for the operators, as we heard earlier.
For your Android partners.
For the handset manufacturers. And
actually, Apple's margins are quite high.
The benefits to the consumer of having this product dropping. In China, there are phones that are $100 retail phones unsubsidized. In India, there are $70 retail unsubsidized phones.
Now, those are $70 because Google is pre-buying the hardware and subsidizing them and subsidizing 200 megabytes of data. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago.
Think of the impact on humanity, because those phones are their entertainment, their education, their safety, their window on the world.
Would it be better if it were something more than a duopoly?
It's always good to have more competitors, but trust me, between Apple and Google, you're seeing enormous racing.
Enormous racing. So, Mumble Room, I ask you, is the battle between Apple and Google truly the defining battle of the computer industry in our current era?
Oh, no. Hell no. I think it's between...
Windows versus Linux.
I think Microsoft is still a contender in there, especially on the Windows desktop. It's still the prevalent desktop. I think desktop still has a lot of clout in the space.
Okay.
And also in the cloud version, is talking about cloud.
Okay, all right. So anybody
you
else?
also have Red Hat and Canonical definitely in the getting in the cloud game,
okay, so
along with Amazon.
I have a response to you, but I want before we move into the cloud, because I think you're going in the right direction there. Anybody else, just on the base of it? Does anybody agree that Apple and Google are the defining battle of the computer industry? Think of mobile. Think of how much is going through mobile, how many devices are being sold, how important that is, how much revenue is there.
I
Well,
don't think that the main two whatever was in the computing industry. I think it's in the mobile industry, because in the computing industry, Google kind of just went, "Oh, here's a Chromebook." Meh.
Right. But he did say the computer industry. He said Schmidt was referring to the entire industry. Lionhead, what do you think?
well, define computing. For many, especially in less rich countries, their mobile devices are their computers.
Yes.
And they will define that tablet or a phone as a computer and not bothering with a laptop or desktop, and maybe not at all. So in that sense, maybe, but on workstations and desktops, I'm not so sure.
What about, okay, so before we go to cloud, what about the fact that we're about to witness a whole new set of payment systems rolled out by a lot of merchants in the U.S. It's probably going to enable pay by phone on Android and iPhone devices, and then Apple and Google will now be fighting in the mobile transaction space too, which is going to be huge, right? So that is going to be massively fierce. But I want to talk about for a second. So that's one thing to consider, but we don't know how that's going to play out. Maybe Schmidt's thinking of that. But the other thing I have to wonder is Schmidt thinking of cloud services? Because Amazon EC2 is a major contender in that space, right? There's all Microsoft, like Eric mentioned, is very relevant with Azure and Windows that is deployed still on all of the desktops in the world. So it seems like it's a very self-centered, stoke the stock kind of statement. It's like a rah troops. Let's go get them. Everybody, Google and Apple are on. You know what?
It's self-stroking.
Full stop right there. I agree. I don't even agree that Google and Apple play at the same level. I don't even think Apple's in their own game. They're not playing Google's game. Apple is playing the expensive, high-end market, custom device game. Google is playing the dominate every computing device with our operating system, monetize, extract as much data as possible, and grow. They are totally different games that are being played, and I think there's room in the market for both types of games. The question is, I think what we're going to find out is if truly is there room for anyone but Google in the long run? Isn't everyone Google's competitor? Because it's not. Look at Amazon. You've got Google Compute, right? You've got Google is even investigating in delivery services so you can order goods from Google like Amazon, right? They're into books, they're into music, they're into video. Google is everyone's competitor. Nobody in the computer industry doesn't compete with Google, and a lot of them also work with Google. It's very awkward. So when to say Apple is their top competitor, I don't know what that means. It seems like maybe if you look at just one particular tiny slice of what Google does, but in full context of advertising, internet services, cloud computing, self-driving cars, drones in the sky delivering internet, that to me, it seems like a ridiculous statement. I think Eric Schmidt is a weasel. I think he's a PR frontman, and most of his time is spent down in Washington lobbying D.C. That's what I think about Eric Schmidt.
He likes to stroke himself a lot, I've noticed.
Just stroke it a little bit.
Yeah, it's his company. He wants to show the world how good it is, and he likes to put himself in the public spot. Yeah, exactly. RMS had it.
Yeah. I don't know. For some reason, when he said that, it seems almost like diminutive to the rest of the computer industry, and it kind of got me worked up. Full interview is in the show notes. Before we go any farther, we do have some Lenovo news to get to, and also maybe a little competition to Eric Schmidt's monopoly. Well, we'll see. We'll talk about that. But first, I just want to mention how you can support the Jupiter Broadcasting Network, fund this show, but also invest in all of the shows and the core infrastructure for Jupiter Broadcasting. And also, another way to help us with our coverage of Ohio Linux Fest, patreon.com/today. We currently have 341 patrons that submit something. There's different levels you can submit. Right now, the default is $3 a month. There's levels down below that are kind of give you an idea of what the different pledges go towards. And there's even a swag club down there, which tomorrow, when Ange is on, I'll have her give you guys an update on the awesome swag that is coming to our T3 Swag Club patrons, because you guys rock. And, Ohio Linux Fest is coming up at the end of October. We're currently at 341 patrons. It would be awesome if we could just bump that over to 350. I feel like that would give Ange peace of mind about our financial situation for that month as we just get in closer. It took me a little bit to convince her to go, because I think it's a big deal if she can get down there, say hi to the fans, we can do some stuff on location, give her a chance to get out, just travel a little bit. But it's a very hard thing for us to do financially. And it's one of those things where we honestly had to have a discussion and say, are we willing to kind of take the short-term risk to do this? But it's important, we think, for the business, for the community, and for the shows. So we went ahead and pulled the trigger. And it's because we have the safety net here where we have some budgetability, some predictability every single month over at patreon.com/today. And you can help us do that by going there and making a pledge level that you're comfortable with. Any amount that you can comfortably do is really appreciated. And I would love to get that up to 350, just so we've kind of hit that threshold as we approach Ohio Linux Fest and we go with a peace of mind. We got towards the end of October, so we got a little bit of time, but now's a better time than ever, really, over at patreon.com/today. And if you want to jump in that swag club, pretty soon we'll have a new round going out. Patreon.com/today, and thank you, everybody who supports the whole Jupiter Broadcasting Network. So Lenovo is set to complete their acquisition of IBM's x86 server business. The X Series IBM servers were some of my favorite x86 servers, and really, really well built. And of course, Lenovo already has the ThinkPad business. This would be huge, though. Also, these IBM X Series servers are huge, huge, huge in government, which could be a problem because there's a bit of an issue right now with government buying Lenovo gear because China. So what do you guys think? Here's the details, and we'll see. This is, by the way, a rumor, but tell me what you think when I give you all the deets. It's rumored to be announced on October 1st. The purchase price will be lower than $2.3 billion announced in January because of a change in valuation of inventory. So now there's going to be $1.8 billion, and that's also because some contracts are down. Lenovo says it has big plans for the enterprise market. We'll compete vigorously across every sector, they say, using our manufacturing scale and operational excellence to repeat the success we've had with the PC, according to Lenovo. Any comments on this, guys? I'm a little sad.
It's kind of sad for IBM, but at the same time, wasn't Lenovo spun off from IBM?
No, ThinkPad was bought by Lenovo.
Right? Oh, okay.
Didn't they also manufacture it for IBM while IBM still owned it?
Yes. Yes, very true. That is very true. That's why it was a good fit. And Lenovo's done well, although I think the later ThinkPads have actually definitely gone in the direction we all worried they would go. But whatever.
I know I'm getting confused. Lexmark was spun off from IBM, the printer manufacturer.
I'm a little disappointed because a lot of times when a brand changes hands like this, after a while it's not quite the same. And this was just a really good hardware. It was really good stuff. It was a lot of like IBM's R&D from the mainframe era brought down to a PC level. Like they were one of the first rack-mountable servers where if there was a hardware failure somewhere on the motherboard, like a RAM socket or a CPU socket or whatever, they had an LED light that would light up next to the failed component. So you could slide it out of the rack, open up the top, and they would have a little matrix board that would tell you like where stuff was, and you could run a little diagnostic, and it would light up the failed component. It made troubleshooting that alone, when you have hundreds of servers and you have a couple of failures and, you got to go dig something out, it was great stuff. I'm sure it'll still be a good brand for a long time. Some people won't be able to buy it now either because of the Chinese connection. That's kind of silly, but I guess that's how it is. All right, so speaking of competition for Eric Schmidt, Ubuntu Touch has hit RTM preview. I'm not exactly sure what it means because I think it's RTM for some devices and not for others. Am I right about that, guys? Like if you have like the Nexus 4 and the Nexus 7, it's hit RTM essentially. And it means this is the release to manufacturing build. And it also means we're going to start seeing some potential hardware soon. In 2013, we all remember, it was like early 2013, Canonical showed the world Ubuntu Touch. Now, the mobile operating system has finally reached release to manufacturing status. We have a link to the full announcement in the show notes. The first phone running Ubuntu Touch, the Muez. Is that how you say it, guys? Muez? MX4?
I wish I could pronounce it.
Muez. Will start shipping in December. We don't have an exact date yet. And we are a little scarce on hardware deets, but iGeek said there'll be a Pro variant, now this is all rumor, that may have a Samsung 5430 processor, which I think is, 1.2 gigahertz, 4 gigs of RAM, 2560 by 1536 screen resolution. That'd be the screen resolution would be really nice. So Softpedia has a walkthrough of the RTM build of the device. If you guys want to check it out, we'll have that linked in the show notes. So
two questions I have is, does it blend? And the second one is, the second one is, does it dock to a screen like they've been showing off before?
No. You mean the convergence stuff?
Yeah, the convergence stuff.
No, that's
that's sad.
That's later. That is later. I am kind of curious to try it out. I am really surprised, not to be sort of a naysayer, but I'm pretty surprised it's at RTM phase, although, to be totally fair and honest, I've been using it on a Nexus 5. So, I mean, I'm not on a Nexus 4, and I might be getting different results. But for the most part, I'm pretty surprised it's on, they're considered RTM, but we'll see. Maybe it's, it's going to be really tuned.
If you go to the screenshot, it looks like there probably might be a bit of user acceptability problems because on web apps it says web app in front, and that just seems a bit cluttered to me.
Now, where are you seeing this web app thing? Where do you see this at?
On the Google Maps.
Oh, Google Maps. Oh, right, yes. Oh, you mean there's no disclaimer that it's a web app? Oh, it does. It's web app. It's prefaced with web app. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So then I guess the implication is that LastPass and Deco and Twitter have native apps on Ubuntu Touch. Is that true?
It's just like if you use it's just in the way. Just makes the layout look messy because
I suppose
it's not aligned.
It's a temporary thing, right? Until they're native apps, though. So, it's good to disclaim that, hey, this might not be a truly native experience.
I was thinking a web browser, a little globe on the app would show.
Right. Yeah, a little icon would do it. Yeah, for sure. That's probably stuff they'll refine over time. It's not even a 1.0 yet. Come on. I don't know. I'm just curious to follow it, and we'll keep our ear out for any launch dates we get for December. I'll probably order one if they've got a CDMA variant. If it's GSM, I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'll try it on a prepaid account if I can. I'm not sure what I'll do there. But I will report back once we know. Okay, guys, well, that just kicks off the beginning of this week. Kind of a slow Monday news-wise. Probably pick up later in the day, and we'll pick up any dropped bits tomorrow, because Tech Talk will be live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week, unless something comes up, and Ann should be joining me tomorrow. So why don't you come? jblive.tv, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. TechTalkToday.reddit.com is where you can go to submit content for the show, story links, ideas, and things like that. So we talked about the mobile industry and how fierce and how competitive it is. And I think it might be fun to look back and look at the mobile industry at a time when companies like Google weren't even a player. They weren't even something people are thinking about, and the market was completely different, yet almost in some ways feels so much the same. So we'll look back at a young David Pogue demoing a Palm Pilot as our clip to go today. Thanks for joining us. See you back here tomorrow, everybody.
Form factor. And the product that really started the revolution is the Palm Pilot. And we have a Palm Pilot expert here, David Pogue, who has written the ultimate guide to the Palm Pilot. Hundreds of pages on just that little thing. All right, let's talk about it. First of all, there's the new Palm 3, David. They want me to spend another $400 to upgrade my Pilot. What do I get in the upgrade? Why is it worth it?
Well, some of the size and shape is the same. It's a little slimmer at the bottom, has a hardcover.
Hardcover, so maybe you don't crash the
Worth
glass.
$400 right here, yeah. Available in a variety of designer colors. True.
All right.
Also, there's some neat new software features. You have a choice of typefaces, some of which are much bigger and much more
So you can have
readable.
bigger fonts if you want.
But the coolest feature is right here, the infrared beaming feature. This is a transmitter here. I can point mine at yours, send you my business card with a single press of a button with all my phone numbers and email, send you one of my programs, send you a page of memo, directions to my house, whatever it is.
Or print to a printer just by beaming at an IR printer.
There's a shareware program that lets you aim this at an HP IR printer, and the printout slides out.
And more memory, right?
Twice as much memory, 2 megs, right?
All right, so let's talk about some of the things that you can do with a Pilot that a lot of people don't do. Now, number one, a lot of people buy the thing and they just sort of use it as is and don't know there are thousands of software programs you can download into that. Right?
That's absolutely true. My book comes with 900 of them. It's an illustrated searchable database. these are a few of the ones that come with the thing. One thing that shocks a lot of people is that this is actually a grayscale device. So this is a free web browser called ProxyWeb. It's an excellent one. Here's my bookmark list. I'm going to go to my own web page here, show you what web browsing looks like on the Palm Pilot. Here we are. I'm scrolling through. The graphics come through as thumbnails, and links show up as dotted line underlines like that. And if I want to see what one of the graphics looks like larger, I just tap on it, choose View Full Size, and there's what a photo looks like on the Palm Pilot.
All right, so you can do a browser. What else could you do?
There's a wonderful chess game. This is called Pocket Chess.
Right, it is great.
Again, these things are tiny. This game is 17K. Let's see Microsoft pull
the good
that
old
up.
days.
Exactly.
Right. There's a music program?
Yeah, there's...
Oh, okay, well, you got a graphics
here's
program.
Here's graphics, right. It's just a regular drawing program like that. There's also a great music program called Pocket Synth with, that has an actual keyboard here. So it's one note at a time, so Bach would need 4 Palm Pilots. And then there's one more that's just so much fun, I have to show it. It's totally useless, but a blast.
The tricorder for Trekkies.
Exactly. Well, people stare at you enough when you're carrying this thing around. Now they say, what is it? Now what you do is you point it at them and you tell them, it's a scanner. You hold down a button.
Like McCoy would have used, right?
And it gives you the readout, no intelligent life forms present.
All right.